I was born in Portland, Eastern. On election day, I traveled to northwestern Clarendon to vote for Warren Newby because that is where my vote is. My wife, on the other hand, didn't even have to drive to the polling station because it was so close to her. And she voted for the Jamaica Labour Party candidate that won that seat. That in itself is one-upmanship on me and is something that I have to deal with because the banter is now in her favor. Greetings to all of you who are listening to me. Thank you. I am disappointed. Or let me start by saying I am very, very happy and elated that the Jamaica Labour Party won the 2025 general election. I am on record as saying that if this never happened, I would take my chance with Donald Trump. I couldn't envision myself living in a country where the PNP is in power. So I'm grateful and happy that the Jamaica Labour Party won the election. I'm disappointed that my candidate, Warren Newby, lost the election. However, I am deeply, absolutely deeply hurt that Anne-Marie Vaz was voted out. It is something that I find very hard to deal with. Very, very hard. I just cannot understand the reason why. And when one is hurt as much as I am, you start looking at what could be possible had gone wrong. Why has it happened? And so in this show, this recording, I'm not here trying to blame anyone or attempting to blame anyone or any group of people for the loss of the Portland Eastern constituency. I have been blamed in the past for election defeats. And I know how gut-wrenching and devastating being blamed, being the person who is blamed for such defeat, how it felt. So I'm not here intending to ascribe blame to anyone. I'm just searching and trying to search, trying to figure out how my people who I live amongst, people who I grew up with, how can they vote out someone like Anne-Marie Vaz? I decided to take a look at the numbers. And as you see on your screen there, in 2019, Anne-Marie Vaz polled 9,989 votes. Now I heard pundits, I heard political commentators saying that if she had pulled out the number of votes that she pulled out in the by-election, she would have won last week. And that is true. However, there's context to everything. First thing, if you look at even the PNP, the number of votes that they pulled out in the by-election, they never pulled that number again. And as far as memory serves me, they have never pulled that number before. In a by-election, where all the assets and resources of the party is trained on one constituency, it can do more and will do more than in a general election when everybody has to, in quotation mark, mind their own business and take care of their own constituency. You know, when you go on an aeroplane, you always heard it. If there's an emergency and the mask drop from the top of the airplane, from where it's dropped from, you should put on your mask first before you seek to help anyone else. So it's something similar like that. So there was no way that Portland Eastern was going to get 11 votes minus 10,000. It's as always going to be a challenge to reach that total. If you look at these numbers in 2019, you will see that the Jamaica Labour Party stronghold are really Fairy Hill and Manchonil. All the other 5 divisions, the PNP wins in. Now fast forward to 2020. Again, you see that the Jamaica Labour Party wins Fairy Hill and Manchonil. And there's an anomaly there in that they won Prospect. Prospect is the east of Port Antonio. Fairy Hill is the west of Port Antonio going back to West Portland, while Prospect is on the east side going out towards St. Thomas. Manchonil is on the border with St. Thomas that occupy at Hector's River and so on the border with Western St. Thomas. But traditionally, the Jamaica Labour Party, 2 stronghold are Manchonil and Fairy Hill. And in 2020, which was an anomaly, they won both, also Prospect. Now the numbers for 2025 are not yet in, or I do not have any access, except for the general numbers. And you see there that Anne-Marie Valls polled 8,181. And when you take away that from 9,989, you're left with 800. You're left with 1,808. So she polled 1,808 fewer votes than she did in 2019, which is an anomaly, which was, as I said, as a result of the entire party resources being laid on the constituency. Now, I'm asking myself, what happened to the votes, the 8,000, not the 9,800, the 8,360? What happened to those 119 votes, 179 votes, which if she had gotten those 179 votes, should have won the election? So I'm asking myself, why? Why is it that her numbers are down from the COVID era? Now, my thoughts, and this is my thought, the fellowship division, as you see there, you look at the fellowship division, in the by-election, she polled 1,821 votes, the by-election in 2019. In the 2020 election, she polled 1,534 votes in the fellowship division. The fellowship division is a stronghold of the PNP. This was able to flip in 2020 because of Erwin Brown, the councillor for that division. From I was born, when Erwin Brown won that division in 2016, was it? It was the first time ever that a Jamaica Labour Party candidate was winning that division, the fellowship division. I think the momentum from that victory by Erwin Brown brought us the numbers that we got in 2019, the 821, the momentum. Erwin Brown lives in the community, a popular person, and was always there. And that momentum carried through to 2020, where it reflects its growing reputation in the constituency, in the division. And so for 2016, in the parish council election and in the general election of 2020, the Jamaica Labour Party was able to win the fellowship division. And when the numbers come out, I'm asking you to all look at this when the numbers come out. If in the fellowship division, they resort back to voting for the PNP, and if that's where the Jamaica Labour Party lost the election, in the fellowship division, because as you look at this chart here, the Jamaica Labour Party lost the election by 135 votes. So it is going to be very interesting to see the margin of victory for the PNP in the fellowship division. So why is it then that the Jamaica Labour Party lost the fellowship division this time, although Erwin Brown had flipped it? And here's it. Erwin Brown died during COVID. Yes, Erwin Brown died during COVID. And maybe, just maybe, that is the reason that the influence that Erwin Brown had in the division, because of his passing, that influence was no longer there. And the present councillor, is he? I can't recall if he's a PNP or a JLP. I think he's a PNP. But the present councillor, the present Jamaica Labour Party representative in that division, doesn't have the same clout or the same influence as Erwin Brown. So I think that's one of the reasons why. It's probably, as I said, I'm not blaming anybody, because I know how harsh that is, because I have been blamed for the Jamaica Labour Party losing a constituency in the past. The third thing that comes to mind is a culture where people doesn't seem to reward hard work. No, they don't. Because if you reward hard work, how on earth Anne-Marie Vaz lost her seat? So it's not about working for the people in Portland Eastern, you know. If I am to enter representational politics, and I'm going to go into representational politics in East Portland, I will not be going there to work hard. I'll be going there to try and see how effective the lie or the lies that I can tell, what impact, if those lies that I'll be telling will have enough impact on the people of Portland Eastern. Well, the majority, because the minority still voted for Anne-Marie Vaz. So, because I'm saying to myself, if you don't credit hard work, what is it that you're going to credit? Gimmicks? Simple gimmicks. So there's no need for me to put out an effort. There's no need for me to strategize to improve the lives and the infrastructure of the constituency. Because if I go about working my butts off to improve all of these things, you will not reward me. So the best thing I can do is to strategize on the lies and the promises that I want to make. Now, the fourth thing is that I look at the margin of victory. Maybe this is not popular among the labor rights, and as I said, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just trying to analyze, just trying to reflect. After defeat, you reflect on anything, on everything. And while we as labor right, we rejoice and we happy and we shout and we celebrate when Darrell comes out with his chart of nicknames, and I myself, I found it very funny and I laugh. But those persons who were sitting on the fence, the undecided, did it affect them? Did they never like it? I don't know. I'm not saying this caused us to lose, but could it have caused us some votes? And big up to Darrell, you know, man. I respect Darrell. And I appreciate him very much. And I was so happy this morning to see the school bus rolling out. Although I don't like the fact that I saw a parent on one of the buses. Those buses must be sterile for children. Absolutely sterile. There should be no compromise. Because once you compromise for one parent, then what is going to stop you from compromise for the second parent? And once we accept it, and then it becomes a norm. And then when it becomes a norm, how are the school buses are going to be different from the other public transportations? Because you can always come up with an excuse to go on the school bus. You can always find an excuse as a parent. Every parent have a very important excuse why they should drive on the school buses. Every parent have an important excuse that they can come up with. So I'm not in agreement with even one single parent driving on the school buses. The school buses must remain sterile for the students. Must be. They must be. Otherwise, it will not be serving the purpose. And even the safety issues comes into concern when other persons are going on those school buses. It must be solely for the parents. Solely for the students. Absolutely, it should be a zero tolerance for parents. Because as I said, every parent can come up with a legitimate excuse why they should be on the bus. You name it, millions of excuses, and it's legitimate. But we cannot allow them to be on the bus, right? So I'm very proud of Darrell, and I rate Darrell to the max, man. But I'm just simply saying, did it affect, did uncommitted voters, were a few uncommitted voters decided, well, you know, I don't like that from Darrell, you know. I don't like that. So I'm going to vote for the other candidate. And you know that in election, 1 vote equal 2. For if the Labour Party was going to get the vote and that person switched and vote for the other party, that is 2 votes. I hope you understand how that works. The next thing I consider is that the doubling of the minimum wage announcement. And I'm not here against persons making a lot of money. I want persons to make money. Persons who knows me know that I always champion for people to make money. And I've always said that if everybody around me is rich, then by default, I will also become rich. Because if I'm not lazy, I'm always going to find a service to offer to capitalize on the richness and the disposable incomes of those persons around me. So I'm not here saying that persons must get the doubling of the minimum wage. And you know that the PNP spin it. The PNP didn't say that it was only going to raise to 18,500 next year, April. They never sell it like that. The way they spin it is like it is going to be doubled next year. That's how they sell it. That's how the PNP sell it. That's how they spin it. And we're business people in Eastern Portland. Were there a few business people in Eastern Portland who look at this and said no? And said, no, we are not supporting that policy. Once again, I'm at pains because I do not want people saying that I am saying that this is why she lose. I'm just looking at the things that could have contributed as someone who is hurting deeply. Absolutely deeply. Usually you wouldn't hear me speak on this channel. I show Jamaica Labour Party meetings and so on. You wouldn't hear me generally speak. But I'm so hurting that I have to express myself. And I'm just looking at the things that I'm saying that could this be so? You know, so don't get me wrong. I appreciate the minimum wage, and I appreciate it raising to $32,000. I always use the example that if you're a tire repair man, you owned a tire shop in your community. Which would you prefer? Everybody in your community have a motor vehicle? Or few people in your community have a motor vehicle? You would want everybody to have a motor vehicle because then you will have more work. Your business will expand. Well, I assume that's what you would want. And so I applaud the Prime Minister for the initiative. to increase the minimum wage. It's a wonderful thing. But I'm just asking, did some business persons in Eastern Portland said no to this policy initiative? I'm just simply asking that. I'm not ascribing any blame. I'm hurting, really hurting. The other thing that I'm asking, did we go into the election overconfident in Eastern Portland? It shook the core of us labor right, that we lost Eastern Portland. Because we were very confident that there's no way the other candidate could beat our lovely Mrs. Anne-Marie Vaz. We were so confident that there's no way it could have happened. And we were shocked for the result. Were we a little overconfident? And despite I citing the death of Erwin Brown not being able to influence the voters in the fellowship division, that's the fellowship division is a Rio Grande Valley, Berrydale, all of that is a part of the Rio Grande Valley. I think it starts somewhere at Breastwork and goes up right into the hills to Millbank, Cooper's Hill, Moortown, right through the Rio Grande Valley. And it'll be very interesting when I see the breakdown of the votes if the fellowship division was what pushed the PNP over the edge. Because everything I said here, if the fellowship division is responsible for pushing the PNP over the edge, then I would want to think that the death of Erwin Brown during COVID was a big miss for the Jamaica Labour Party. We probably really missed him. And he was a fairly young man. Best of my knowledge, he was not yet even 60. His family, they believe that something untoward happened with his drinks during COVID. We have no evidence of that. The staff, the medical expert at the Port Antonio Hospital, I think they said that he died from COVID, but families, his family believe that something untoward had happened. But could that have been his influence? The Jamaica Labour Party missed his influence. In just speaking to you this afternoon, I felt better, I felt a little better because I'm telling you the truth. This defeat in Portland Eastern is not going down well with me. It has shook the core of my life. I don't live there anymore. I don't live in Northwest Clarendon anymore either. But I'm a Portland man that went Titchfield. I'm from Eastern Portland, and I know a lot of persons in Eastern Portland. I know Erwin Brown quite well. I know his family quite well. Could that be the reason? I appreciate your company. And for those of you who would have listened to this recording and until its end, thank you very much for doing so. Have a wonderful day. And I hope now that having shared it, I will continue to feel a little better, but I don't know. There's just this hurt. It's hurting. I am hurting. Have a good day.